Blessed to be part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. We're always looking at the great liberator, the great emancipator of our society today. That would be education. Joining us now from Invest in Education Foundation, the Invest in Education Foundation. It's been a while since we've had him on. Peter Murphy. Mr. Murphy, welcome back.
Kevin, thanks for having me on. Great to talk to you.
You know, we take a look at education, and for many years people talked about vouchers, school choice. That seems to have been put on the back burner. Where are we in that national conversation concerning improving education?
Well, from a school choice perspective, you see more and more of the mechanism kind of transitioning away from this voucher discussion, which is basically a government expenditure given to parents to take to the school that they select. It's kind of it's almost really a transfer payment directly from government to the family or to the school on behalf of the family that they choose. And the mechanism that has been more in vogue and I think much more effective is this idea of a tax incentive to encourage people to give to scholarship funds, K-12 scholarship funds. So those are nonprofit organizations. They're tax deductible. You turn that into a tax credit, you increase the incentive to give, and more people will give, making more scholarships available, helping more children. So that's been more and more states are looking at that approach, which really it involves the government, but it's also encouraging the private sector to basically finance the increased educational opportunities for parents. So 18 states have done this. 18 states have passed laws along these lines. And we're looking to do the same on a national level to reach kids in those states where it hasn't been done.
Well, education, what is it, like 60% of our general fund here in Idaho goes to education. And yet we have problems with people graduating. We have problems with people moving on. And the rural folks, they don't have enough teachers. Is this just a symbolic of what's going on in Idaho, or are these issues going on across the country as well, sir?
Well, Idaho, the states have very similar challenges because you're right, education is the dominant expenditure at the state level for sure. So it's hard to argue that there's a lack of funds, but I think the challenge now is that the non-salaried expenses of education, the pension benefits, the health benefits, that is taking a bigger and bigger portion of that 60%. And as a result, it's crowding out expenses that go directly to teacher salaries, to the classroom. That's been a big problem. And that's what, so teachers can say, well, we haven't gotten a raise in years, but, you've got a guaranteed pension, and that costs money right now. Paying your pension 20 years from now requires expenses today. And so I think every state's facing that problem. And so that's why people sort of say, well, gee, we don't have enough money for education. Well, yeah, we spend a lot on education. It's just not going to the classroom. It's going to your retirement 20 years from now.
Indeed. Of course, then we have people that opt out of the education system, and then they become a drain on our society.
Well, look, we've got to meet. Children come in all shapes and sizes. There's all kinds of challenges in the family. Education has to adapt to that. And what we're trying to do at Invest in Education is we're just trying to match students with the most suitable, best quality school that we can get to them, because it is a life changer. I can give you countless stories of people who were in a lousy school, a lousy neighborhood, and had all the odds against them and would end up in jail by their own testimony. I would go to jail like my older brother, for instance. But a scholarship comes along in their life. They get selected, randomly. The scholarship fund can, through someone's charity, and they end up in a Catholic school or a private school, and their life changes because it was a better approach. There's a reason wealthy people often can send their kids to private schools. It's a better deal. Well, we're trying to bring that in sort of a progressive way to people who can't afford that because they're not going to survive in the situation they're in. And so we've got to address those needs and again, match children with the best quality education we can give them through multiple means. I mean, school choice is not the panacea. Scholarship tax credits is not the only way to address the system. There's lots of things to do, but we can't ignore doing this. We have to approach it from a myriad of policy choices.
Well, again, that's easier said than done when you take a look
yes.
at just the challenge of so many factions in education. Peter Murphy joining us from the Invest in Education Foundation. Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. So is there any way to take a look at public education, or are they too big to change? And that's not an attack, but the public schools are, that's where everybody goes. They don't turn anybody away. And, advocates of public education would say, Mr. Murphy, we're at a disadvantage because we can't be selective like charter schools. We can't do this like other schools. We can't, have, a certain type of student like a magnet school. So what's going to be the fate of public education? And there are some really great public educators and great public schools.
Look, you've asked the spot-on question, right? We're always going to have a public education system. We must have one. But it's got to be nimble and adaptable to the needs and challenges of children, and one of the real impediments is that public education policy that are made in state capitals is not about the children. I mean, it sounds like a very broad, sweeping statement. I've just been around it too long, and that's what I was told that years ago. I didn't like when I first heard it, but I've experienced this year in and year out. Public education policy is not about kids; it's about the adults. Okay, and that's got to change. Now, teachers unions, collective bargaining, that's all well and good, but there has to be someone on the other side of the bargaining table that's standing up for kids, and that's what we see so little of. Certainly in my home state, in many states around the country, you just don't see the other person, the other side of the bargaining table saying, look, I'm putting kids first. You represent adults, I represent kids, and we've got to meet their needs as well. You have to adapt your work hours. We have to be able to move people around. We have to be able to replace bad teachers. All those things that people talk about are rarely implemented in a systemic way that's going to get better results. And what's happened as a result, Kevin, is you've seen things like in the last 25 years, charter schools spring up all over the country. Charter schools fundamentally are a response to a one-size-fits-all recalcitrant system that's governed by labor contracts and not flexibility and management ability. That's really what charters are a response to, managing to get better results. That's just one way, but again, doesn't cover the whole system, obviously.
Right. Mr. Murphy, let's talk a little bit about military families and school choices. You think the military, everything is above board, which it is, but unless you're a military brat like I formerly was, schools are really not the top of mind. What's going on with military families and school choice?
Well, there's an effort in Congress, in the House of Representatives, where Congressman Jim Banks of Indiana has put legislation out that would give military families what's called an education savings account. And what that would do is it would help those families who, as you've experienced, I'm sure, moving around a lot, being redeployed, having their children's lives disrupted over and over. This would give those families, if they want to access it, a pot of money to have an alternative education. If they end up in a school district that's not suitable, that's not to their liking, that doesn't help their child adequately, they can do something else. They can take that funding and go to a private school. They can do homeschooling. They can do online education, special education, whatever the issue that they face as a family. And it's another inducement it's ultimately not just about the child education and giving them some better options, but giving another inducement for the parent to stay enlisted, keep experienced, quality personnel serving our country, because many of those folks, who enlisted in their late teens, early 20s, like my own son, they end up, getting married, starting families, and then they leave. And, we've invested in them. they have the experience and quality we need in the service. And so ultimately the issue of kind of military education savings accounts is not just about the children of military families. It's about retention in the military, readiness, and the defense of the country.
Right, because if you're worried about your kid, how can you, focus on everything else?
Exactly. And if if their lives are being disrupted and their education isn't any good, you have interest that, you may have enlisted as a single person ready to conquer the world, but when you're raising a family in your late 20s, early 30s, you know what? Civilian life is looking a lot better, and that's the competition. That's the challenge the military faces: keeping quality people serving our country. And to do that, you've got to address not just their immediate issues, but you've got to address their family issues. They're having families, and their needs need to be met as well. And that's what we're trying to do with the military education savings account.
Mr. Murphy, people want more information to help educate military families. What can they do?
Well, H.R. 5199, that's the bill that from Congressman Banks of Indiana. It's got over 70 co-sponsors in the House. People can certainly call their members of Congress, H.R. 5199, and they can also go on investineducation.org, and go on our website and find out more as well. And feel free to reach out to us too.
Mr. Murphy, we've enjoyed it once again. We hope to have you back. You take care now.
Kevin, thanks so much for having me. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Peter Murphy joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning. There's a conservative gathering in the West, and if you're in the area, it's a place you might want to go to this weekend. I'll tell you where it is next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. It's getting heated again and again, whether it's on CNN or elsewhere. On the Don Lemon show last night, you had people going crazy because you have the Arizona police officer being placed on leave for punching a man, and CNN didn't like that. So we're going to share that with you. And the reason why we're going to do that is just to show you how blessed we are to live here in the state of Idaho. Very different from Arizona and other places.
Mark, isn't this what NFL players wanted to bring attention to?
Exactly. While the president is making this a distraction by suggesting that players were protesting the flag or the anthem or were being
Right. What they're trying to do is justify the players disrespecting the United States of America. By the way, Ray Amaya, thank you for that rejoiner. Brilliant when you have lover boy Hillary Clinton and she says gangs are good. They're like family. Hey now. So CNN, instead of being fair and balanced and accurate, they're looking for a way to justify the players that probably don't even know what happened in Arizona, justify them kneeling and protesting. Protests are not acceptable when you're paying for entertainment. Do it on your own time, on your own platform, right? That's the issue. And yet you have people that just don't seem to see this. They are so desperate to lay the smack down and go, and it's crazy. Report the news. Do not, how should I say this, be a propagandist. But that's why CNN is failing. We hear that from Sean all the time.
Unpatriotic. What they were actually doing was trying to shine a spotlight on police violence, and in this case, police terrorism. I mean, this is disgusting.
Mark, you do see that one of the guys that's hitting the guy is African-American. You're talking about all police brutality here. Let's not make it about race. But when you got one of the guys punching the guy in the face with his elbow is one of the African-American police officers.
And that is a straw man. Nobody said white.
You can't say it's racial when you got a black guy pounding him.
You can be black.
It is racial. Because black people are the ones getting beaten by police. I don't care if it's a black officer
My
or a
whole
white
point
officer.
is you have an issue with police brutality, but let's not say it's automatically racism when you have a black guy doing it.
Yes,
you have an African-American police officer pounding the guy in the face.
Hold on, brother. You're smarter than that. You can be black, white, or Hispanic, or whatever. You can be co-opted by a system regardless of what race you are.
But you're getting beaten by black people.
My point is it's not always about the issue of racism, which some people have been implying here.
No one is
You just said it was about racism. It was insulting.
So you think a white person would be beaten by an officer like that?
There have been white people that have been beaten by police officers, Don. There's plenty of stories you might...
There we have it. By the way, Ben Ferguson, a great friend of ours, at one time the youngest talk show host in America, and still a conservative, still on CNN. It's amazing that Mr. Ferguson keeps his job, but if the police are bad, the police are racist. Well, you have a black officer popping a black suspect. How can that be racism? Look, the tragedy here is that good men and women of law enforcement are being smeared by CNN. The tragedy here, especially in beautiful Idaho, is that in a place that is the most racially tolerant, the most racially accepting in the country, if not the world, we have to listen to this stuff. But this stuff is going on, and there are elements that are trying to be disruptive here. That's why we must be ever vigilant. It's amazing that, let's justify the overpaid NFL players being disrespectful and bring up this divisive issue. No, I'm not going to judge police officers. I think they do a great job. And you know something? I'd rather err on the side of being with the police because, to me, they don't get the breaks. We ask them to do the impossible. Think about that the next time you're irritated at work or when you blow up. You do that as a police officer, you're just human, and you could lose your job. That's a double standard. That's the highest standard. And that should be looked at and rewarded, not torn down to justify the NFL. 26 after the hour, traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning on 580 AM, 107.5 FM. Good morning, Dave. And we continue on. By the way, if you notice, Don Lemon caught himself. He almost called Ben Ferguson stupid. That's civility at CNN. Tina, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, Tina.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Started listening to you about a year ago, and now I'm addicted, so thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hey, love your show. Couldn't help but call today. Hillary Clinton, number one, I just cringe every time I hear her voice, but she speaks truly like a liberal in that all the wonderful words, positive, peace, love, tranquility, all those great words with nothing to back it up. If she wants some positive groups for these kids, then send them to Boys and Girls Club, send them to Girl Scouts, send them to Boy Scouts, Scouts of America. And, we got a lot of positive things going on. But she has no way of backing up what she said as far as peace and love. And one more thing, to Liberal Steve and to Doug in Mountain Home. Hey, guys, let's not turn Kevin's show into a name-calling program, okay? Have a great day. Everybody be positive.
Tina, God bless. Thank you. And we go to Max in Garden City at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Max.
Good morning, Kevin. I'm thinking about the talking heads on TV, actresses and actors, comedians, sports stars. Why do people listen to any of them when what you're listening to is a millionaire who's got more people kissing their knees than anything else? They got sycophants all around them, and they have absolutely no impact. They don't even know what they're talking about, yet people are listening. Why do we pay attention?
Well, because we're entertained by them, and then you have the folks at CNN desperate to justify their unacceptable actions, jump into the forefront.
CNN, they're the best example of having shifted from news to commentary. It's 24-hour-a-day commentary around the clock. I don't need to be indoctrinated. I like to be informed.
Well, good luck with that one.
Yeah, I agree with that. Other than that, Kevin, I hope you're free on Saturday and you can swing by my book signing.
Well, tell everybody where you're going to be.
I sure will. Thank you. I'm going to be over at Bargain Books on West State Street. That's right across from Thriftway Building Supply and a stone's throw from the Salvation Army. It'll be 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. this Saturday, And it's going to be come on down. We're going to talk about China, the real China, not the China everybody teaches you on the radio and TV, but what's really happening. And they are diametrically opposed. They're nothing at all like one another.
One more time, Max. We always want to support our folks here.
Okay. Max Allen got a book signing coming up this Saturday. That's day after tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Bargain Books. Great place for used books. They're across the street from Thriftway Building Supply, about 45-something. Well, got a poster right here. Oh,
all right, Max. We know where Bargain Books is. Right. We know where Bargain Books is on West State Street, 10 to 2 tomorrow. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, our great friend Max. Go buy some of his books. He's a very entertaining, engaging young man. You're listening to Kevin Miller on 580 AM, 107.5 FM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. How many of us remember Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers? Remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and what an impact it had on all of us? I was more of an electric company guy. I don't know about you, but even today, Mr. Rogers continues to resonate. In a time where America was turbulent, there was Fred Rogers. There's a new documentary coming out. Here's our own Tanya J. Powers with the very latest on KIDO Talk Radio.
The new documentary about Mr. Rogers is appropriately named for the question he's best known for asking.
Won't you be my neighbor? It's an invitation to help somebody know that they're loved and capable of loving.
At the heart of Won't You Be My Neighbor is the life and guiding philosophy of Fred Rogers, the host and creator of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, who passed away in 2003. The show ran from 1968 until 2001, leaving behind more than 1,700 episodes. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
And Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. But you go to the world of Fred Rogers and children and how young and how impressionable they are. And what the challenges that they have and the dangerous influences that are out there, right? And here you had a man that was so committed to kids. People thought he was crazy. In fact, people that have reviewed the documentary said that there's no expose. Now imagine the world that we live in today, where we have the Kim Kardashians, where we have the NFL athletes that won't stand for the national anthem, where we have CNN doing their very best to stir up division in America. And there's Fred Rogers. There was no skeletons in his closet. Fred Rogers, unlike just about anybody in media, because there is some things that you keep to yourself, I think, Fred Rogers was the same person on television that he was in his private life. And what an amazing contribution. And you folks do that. We do that every day, right? We do that every day. Our friends, whether they work at the Meridian Canine Rescue, the Boise Rescue Mission, the West Valley Humane Society, St. Vincent de Paul. There's so many nonprofits to make. I always am inspired by the people like Mr. Rogers. And as a kid, I would think to myself, oh, what does that guy know? He's a nerd. But you look at the legacy of Fred Rogers and kindness. You don't get that with Samantha Bee. You don't get that with Roseanne Barr. And yeah, people seem to like that in-your-face stuff back and forth. However, what about civility? And the ability to walk down a street. Hey, Fred. You know, I hope we can find where that is locally. I haven't been to a movie in several years. But to honor a person who made a difference. And a legacy where you have kids. I was watching, the CBS show. And they said, we're going to look at the new Fred Rogers documentary. And they had a young man on, I believe he was the postal worker. and he was an aspiring opera singer. And remember, when Fred Rogers was first starting Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, that was in 1968. That was where you had the assassination of Dr. King, of Bobby Kennedy, of desegregation, of busing, of the riots. And Fred Rogers has this actor, this African-American actor, this black actor, sitting in a tub with him, and they're, cooling each other's feet. And the guy goes, he wasn't doing much for racism. And he goes, and then I took a step back and realized the impact Fred Rogers was having on the millions of people that were watching him. I'm always hard on state-sponsored television. Mr. Rogers, that's good. I wish public television, public radio would be more like Fred Rogers. And commercial radio, for that matter, commercial television, right? But you talk about making a difference. That's coming out this week. Conservatives are meeting in the West. They don't call it CPAC West. They call it the Western Conservative Summit with the very latest. Here's our own Jeff Manasso at KIDO Talk Radio.
This year's Western Conservative Summit in Denver will host speakers like Attorney General Jeff Sessions, EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, NRA activists, and social media personalities Diamond and Silk in a two-day program that organizers say is designed to advance faith, family, and freedom for our future. Someone who won't be present this year, Samantha Bee, whose press credential request has reportedly been denied after the comedian sparked outrage over her vulgar language about first daughter Ivanka Trump. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Well, and look, when the libs come to something of faith, family, and freedom, and I guess you throw in the future, now you have 4 Fs instead of 3. What do? They do their very best to mock us. They do our very best. They do their very best to belittle us with their mean, uncivil chatter. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up, we'll take a look at a few other things, getting ready for the President's Historic Summit in Korea. And I want to talk to you a little bit about trade, because we've been hearing that some people in Idaho are upset with the president, who has said, look, Canada, if you're going to put tariffs on things, then we're not going to buy your products, right? Do you agree with his policy? We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. First, Liberty Linda joins us now at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. Our public education system has changed since I was a kid. It's not about educating. It's about brainwashing. And it's for a certain global political agenda. Kevin, they don't teach what our country is all about. They don't teach about our wonderful founding fathers. Our millennials do not know what freedom is all about. I mean, I know you talked to many of them. I have as well. And it's all about destroying some of our favorite statues that we've had here since the beginning. I mean, I couldn't believe that when I saw it. Anyway.
Well, it's not about the band of brothers, unfortunately.
No. When are we going to wake up and see what's going on in our own country? Has anyone ever looked up the Georgia Guidestone? It tells the agenda of the left. Anyway, look that up. It's very important. And I also wanted to give you a little bit of trivia this morning. Because you mentioned, Joby now is in Florida. And you mentioned something about a city called Robbins, I believe.
Warner Robins, yes. Warner Robins, Georgia, yeah.
Well, the word Robbins, R-O-B-B-I-N-S, actually means capital R-O-B, small B-I-N-S, means son of Robert. And it all came out of Robert I in France. So anyway, that's a little bit of trivia. That's what Robbins means. Son of Robert. I think that may be important for some people with the name Robert.
Well, it's always good to get that information.
It's good to know that. So if anyone has the last name Robbins, that's what it means. Son of Robert out of France, Robert I. That's for their genealogy.
Well, genealogy is important. Thank you, Liberty Linda.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Have a great day.
You as well, our great friend, Liberty Linda. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Now, very strange. You've got Mika Brzezinski yesterday. Now, she's one of these talking heads on MSNBC. Decided to go after Rudy Giuliani because he defended President Trump concerning the Stormy Daniels allegations. And it got very personal with Mika. She and Joe Scarborough, her fiance, they were both married to other people, but that didn't let them stop them from finding their true love. She had this to say about the president.
A couple of things. First of all, the hypocrisy is astounding because I know someone who spoke to Donald Trump recently about life in the White House, and Donald Trump's biggest complaint was that he's not allowed to watch porn in the White House.
There we have it. Class act, Mika. Again, unsubstantiated speculation, but let's smear the President of the United States.
I'll tell you a couple of things. First of all, the hypocrisy is astounding because I know someone who spoke to Donald Trump recently about life in the White House, and Donald Trump's biggest complaint was that he's not allowed to watch porn in the White House.
You know, when will they just stop it? Just stop the insanity, right? We have this gentleman who's going up against the Canadians, going up against the French, going up against the Germans with this big summit. They're mad because the ripping off of America has stopped. At 580-5436. Did you know the Canadians, they put tariffs on our dairy 300%, according to the president? And because the president sticks up for people, all of a sudden they've got an issue with it, right? And that's America. But to start making this stuff up is crazy. You know, here's the other crazy thing about this is there's more of us than there are of them. Now we've got, the NBA Finals coming up, and we have Steve Kerr saying this.
Are in D.C. today. Celebrating, I guess, in their own way, their championship, giving out more than 300 pairs of sneakers to some underprivileged kids that they got connected with there. What does that say about their franchise? Right? Because they kind of took a page of making basically from what you guys did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the facts, whether they were invited to the White House or not. They were not invited, I think what you're seeing is, I think the athletes are showing patriotism through their community service. The president is turning all this stuff into a political game and a ratings game, and it's a blatant display of nationalism. What patriotism is helping your fellow citizen, and whether it's what KD's doing or what we did when we visited Washington, what the Lynx are doing today. I mean, that's what patriotism is about. And I'm blown away by the irony of the Eagles being disinvited. When you read about their good deeds in their communities, Malcolm Jenkins addressing lawmakers, really trying to get to the root of some of the issues we have, and instead we just have these military sing-alongs at the White House to show how patriotic we are, even though we don't know the words. It's just incredible. It is incredible. But I'm really proud of people in this country.
Yes, we can all agree to disagree, but they will not stop. They will not stop until they, tear down this administration. Never mind peace in the world, the end of ISIS, and record unemployment. And people feeling, the economic positivity index, if that's what you call it, consumer confidence index, it hasn't been this high in 18 years. We'll talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And more of your phone calls this morning. Joe in Meridian, thanks for your patience. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hi, Kevin. How are you today?
Great to have you with us, Joe. Not bad. And you?
Doing great. God keeps blessing me every day, big guy.
Right on, brother. Right back at you.
Hey, just wanted to check in with you on the international tariffs, and I tend to do a little bit in that arena in the past more, but some now as well. And I'm involved in some of these groups that talk internationally, and what's kind of alarming is that, whether it's bankers or attorneys or some of the international marketing reps, they don't really think that any of these things are good because they like things the way they were. And however, from my opinion, we were getting raked over the coals without much in return, and we're the largest economy in the country. And so the funny thing is I was told 2 months ago at one of these meetings that I was at that, this is going to cause such disruption in the marketplace. No one's going to want to trade with us. We're going to have all kinds of trade wars, all these things. And reality is what's happening. People are coming to the table and renegotiating these trade deals because Trump knows how to negotiate. And part of negotiating is you got to call people on the carpet and let them know, hey, we're not going to put up with this anymore. And if you want to, charge us a bunch of tariffs, we're going to come right back at you. And I don't understand why that's such a foreign concept or so quote unquote mean, right? I mean, I don't get it, Kevin. To me, it seems like that's fair.
Well, I don't get why we have our whole opposition party and the press cheering against the president, wanting him to fail when we had the Obama administration. They were in his back pocket.
Well, yeah, and the thing is I mean, at the end of the day, is it good for? I mean, does it have a short period of time where things adjust? Sure. And does it mean that it might be tougher to get credit or various things when there's things up in the air? Maybe. But at the same point in time, what about all these people that are out of work? What about all these people that in America that are wanting the better life? And the Democrats, time and again, act like they're the advocates for these people. But when we go to bat on trade wars and go to bat in figuring out, hey, how do we keep some of our jobs here by not allowing these people to tariff our goods overseas? They're nowhere to be found. They think that's mean, and it's so ironic that they do that because it doesn't back up their proposed or stance that they kind of throw out there that they're for all the people that are underprivileged. And so it really does make me upset because it seems like the argument is we're for all the people that are underprivileged, but if there's going to be any pain or any disruption to our lives, then we're not anymore. And I'm not saying that's the way everybody feels, but that's how it looks sometimes. And I think that's kind of discouraging to me. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would agree with you, and that's why we've become more vocal in supporting the administration and supporting the president.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, he's doing the right things.
Joe, I've got to run, but thank you.
Yep.
All right, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Mark and Nampa, we're just about out of time, but we wanted to get you in. We appreciate you listening to KIDO Talk Radio. You've got about 30 seconds, sir.
Well, you were talking about the price of milk in Canada, and I can guarantee it's true. I lived in Bellingham, Washington, and the Costco there is the largest distributor of milk in the whole Costco brand. Wednesday and Saturday, you didn't go to Costco because everybody from Canada was down buying all of the milk out of all of the cases. And they were taking it right back and selling it in their stores.
Mark, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Not a problem.
All right, brother. Good morning, Dave. And coming up, Kevin Miller in the morning here, Fox News. Then the president, North Korea, and what about China's role in all of this? Could China make the difference, or are they going to continue to try and stick it to us? We'll find out next. Stay tuned.